When it comes to Soulsborne matchups, my favorite has always been Sekiro versus Malenia. The parallels and connections they share make them perfect opponents, and imagining their combat would be thrilling to watch. Yet, the Soulsborne community is nearly split down the middle on how this battle would play out. Today, I've gathered all the evidence to present my case. So, let's dive in. Who would win, Sekiro or Malenia?
Are you prepared to commit a cardinal sin? Very well. Let my hand rest upon you for but a moment.
To keep this video concise, I won't go into every aspect of Sekiro's arsenal. Otherwise, this will turn into a much longer video, and half of it wouldn't even matter against Malenia. Instead, let's focus on what Malenia brings to the table, and then explore how Sekiro can counter her abilities. Malenia is arguably one of the strongest demigods in Elden Ring lore. She managed to fight General Radahn to a stalemate, only resorting to unleashing the Scarlet Aeonia to end their battle in a draw. Some sources even suggest she was already injured before facing Radahn, which makes her feats even more impressive. Malenia is an Empyrean, meaning she's a potential candidate to become a god of the next age. In her case, the Age of Rot. Empyreans are chosen by the Two Fingers, envoys of the Greater Will. However, revelations from the DLC imply that the fingers may not have been in true contact with the Greater Will, somewhat diminishing the significance of the title. Still, being an Empyrean denotes immense power. Beyond her title, Malenia harbors the Scarlot Rot, a catastrophic affliction that consumes almost all forms of life, both organic and inorganic. It corrodes landscapes, turning regions like Caelid into desolate wastelands. Even Malenia herself isn't immune. She's lost her eyes, an arm, and both legs to the rot. Despite its terrifying power, the Scarlet Rot isn't unstoppable. Fire can halt its spread, as the Redmane Knights effectively used fire-based weaponry and barriers to contain it. Running water also prevents the rot from advancing, explaining why it hasn't consumed the entire world. In combat, Malenia's abilities are formidable. In her base form, she relies on swift slashes, extended thrusts, and her infamous waterfowl dance. In her second phase, she incorporates the Scarlet Rot into her fighting style. She gains the ability to unleash rot-infused attacks, summon scarlet blooms that cause explosions, and even create shadow clones from rot butterflies. Her speed is notable as well. The shockwaves generated by this move suggest supersonic capabilities. Some argue she can react to lightning speed attacks, but evidence for that is less concrete. Her durability is impressive. She can withstand numerous hits, though she's not invincible. She can be staggered and is susceptible to being parried, which are critical points to consider. Perhaps her most formidable asset is her Great Rune, which allows her to siphon life force from her opponents with each successful hit, even if the attack is blocked. This makes prolonged fights against her extremely challenging, as she can recover health throughout the battle. General Radahn is famous for halting the movement of the stars in the sky using gravity magic. While this sounds incredibly powerful, it's important to understand what this means in the context of Elden Ring's world. He used his gravity magic to stop the stars, which are connected to fate and the outer gods in the game's lore. However, this ability doesn't directly impact his combat skills. In battle, Radahn doesn't use this power to attack his enemies. Instead, he fights using massive swords and gravity-based attacks that, while strong, don't reach the same level as stopping celestial bodies. This means that while Radahn is incredibly powerful, we shouldn't overestimate his combat abilities based solely on his control over the stars. In terms of actual fighting power, we can consider Radahn, and by extension, Malenia, to be extremely strong, but not invincible. The term stars in Elden Ring is a bit unclear. It can refer to meteors, outer gods, or other celestial bodies that aren't necessarily like the stars we know. For example, after Radahn's death, a meteor falls and opens the way to Nokron, suggesting that the stars he held back were more like meteors or other cosmic phenomena. So, scaling Malenia's power based on Radahn stopping the stars isn't entirely accurate, especially since she doesn't use similar abilities in combat. Where does that leave us regarding their actual fighting abilities? Based on Radahn's Meteor Attack and Malenia's Scarlet Aeonia, it's reasonable to say their most powerful attacks are on a country or continental level, but their regular attacks are much less destructive. For instance, calculations using in-game data suggest that Radahn's sword swings generate significant force, but not on a cosmic scale. Similarly, Malenia's Waterfowl Dance, while incredibly fast and deadly, doesn't have planetary-level power. Understanding this context is important when comparing Malenia to Sekiro. It helps us ground their abilities in a more realistic way, rather than exaggerating their powers based on vague lore elements. Before we focus on Sekiro, let's talk about an important figure in Elden Ring's lore, the Blind Swordsman. This mysterious warrior faced the outer god of Rot and managed to seal it away in the Lake of Rot. He later became Malenia's mentor, teaching her a fighting style that allowed her to combat the Rot and fight without relying on her eyesight. The Blind Swordsman was given a special flowing sword by a blue fairy. He used this weapon to battle the outer god of Rot. His fighting style was like a dance, flowing smoothly and gracefully. According to the curved sword talisman, his technique involved letting his opponent attack first so he could defend and counterattack at the perfect moment. This blend of fluid movements and strategic counterattacks enabled him to defeat the outer god of Rot and seal it away. Now that we've covered Malenia's background and influences, let's move on to Sekiro and how he can counter her abilities. Sekiro, also known as the One-Armed Wolf, is no ordinary warrior. Throughout his journey, he's faced and overcome challenges that would be impossible for most. One of his most notable achievements is defeating the Divine Dragon, an immensely powerful creature, the source of immortality in Ashina. But what truly sets Sekiro apart isn't just his victories, it's his unique combat style and abilities. Sekiro's fighting style centers around deflection and precise timing. He's mastered the art of reading his opponent's movements, allowing him to parry attacks that would overwhelm others. This skill is crucial when facing someone like Malenia, whose aggressive attacks can be relentless. He also has a range of prosthetic tools at his disposal, each offering different advantages in combat. For example, his Flame Vent prosthetic can unleash bursts of fire, which is particularly effective against enemies vulnerable to it. Considering that fire can halt the spread of the Scarlot Rot, this could be a key advantage against Malenia. Sekiro has also faced foes with regenerative abilities and those who defy death. The Guardian Ape, for instance, continues to fight even after being decapitated. Sekiro overcomes this by using the Mortal Blade, a weapon capable of severing the ties that bind immortality. This means he's experienced in dealing with opponents who won't stay down after a fatal blow, much like Malenia with her regenerative abilities. In terms of speed and agility, Sekiro excels. His shinobi training emphasizes quick movements, stealth, and acrobatic skills. He's capable of reacting to lightning-fast attacks, as seen in his battles against enemies who wields the power of lightning. This suggests that Sekiro can match, or even surpass, Malenia's speed. Sekiro's Mikiri counter is specifically designed to counter thrusting attacks, which Malenia uses in her moveset. This technique allows him to not only avoid damage, but also deal significant posture damage to his opponent, setting up opportunities for critical strikes. Sekiro's experience isn't limited to ordinary foes. He's battled opponents like the True Monk, who has centuries of combat experience and unusual abilities. The True Monk is from the Heian era of Japan, which took place about 500 years before Sekiro's time in the Sengoku era. This means he's defeated enemies with hundreds of years more experience than himself, showing that he can overcome fighters with vast experience and powers beyond the ordinary. Also, Sekiro possesses the ability to resurrect upon death, thanks to the dragon's heritage. While he doesn't rely on this recklessly, it provides an extra layer of resilience in battle, a chance to adapt and overcome even after suffering a fatal blow. Before we move on, I want to address one of the most common arguments against Sekiro winning this fight, that because Malenia is a demigod, Sekiro can't even be compared to her, let alone have a chance to win. But if you've played Sekiro, you know that he also fought and defeated a very powerful being, the Divine Dragon. This isn't just any enemy. The Divine Dragon is the source of immortality in Ashina, and its power is enormous. Sekiro not only faces this strong creature, but also defeats it. So, the argument that Sekiro can't stand up to a demigod like Malenia doesn't make much sense when you consider that he's already taken down such a powerful opponent in his own world. Now that we've analyzed both of them, I'm going to explain why Sekiro would beat Malenia, and it's not even close. To demonstrate this, I'll share some numbers and statistics I found while I was on Reddit. In regards to their attack power, Malenia can output 2.4 megajoules on the low end and 78 megajoules on the high end, whereas Sekiro is capable of deflecting 2,000 megajoules on the low end and 66 million megajoules on the high end. And if we consider that he's only deflecting 0.1% of the Divine Dragon's sword, he's still capable of deflecting 2 megajoules on the low end and 66,000 megajoules on the high end. In regards to speed, Malenia is capable of moving at supersonic speeds, with the low end being 314 meters per second and the high end being a lightning timer of 7,000 meters per second, or 120,000 meters per second. Sekiro is also capable of moving at these exact speeds and also reacting to them. But because his skills state that they actually create shockwaves, I'll make the low end be 343 meters per second, the minimum speed needed to create shockwaves. In regards to experience, Malenia has at minimum 1,000 years of experience, while Sekiro can fight enemies that have centuries, if not 1,000 years more experience than him, and win. In regards to poise and posture, Malenia has pretty bad poise, but Sekiro has extremely good posture, meaning that Malenia is much more easily staggered than Sekiro would be. For Malenia, she doesn't have any counters against Sekiro, except for maybe the Scarlot Rot, but even then, Sekiro has ways around it. Whereas, Sekiro has counters to literally everything in Malenia's moveset. So when it comes to this matchup, it just seems like Sekiro absolutely destroys Malenia. The only possible way she can even stand a chance is if you believe that Malenia is solar system level due to Radahn halting the stars. But we've already gone over why I don't think you should do that to determine Malenia and Radahn's power level, especially when the Scarlet Aeonia is on a much weaker level and it still managed to knock her out. While on the topic, the Scarlot Rot terraforming Caelid likely didn't happen all at once either. It's more likely that the spread of the rot was gradual, explaining how the citizens had time to set up firewalls, and also explaining why when we fight Malenia, everything doesn't automatically terraform. So you could use this to argue that the Aeonia is even weaker than the scaling I assigned to it. So that's my analysis, and the reasons why I believe Sekiro would come out on top against Malenia. I'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to share them in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and consider subscribing to help the channel grow. And if you're interested in a matchup that's more evenly balanced, Malenia versus Ishin would be a much closer contest.